Well, folks, it wasn't pretty, but West Virginia gets the victory 20-13 over the Texas Tech Red Raiders this past Saturday, and Neal Brown finally gets the monkey off his back and gets a win over the only Big 12 team he had yet to defeat. And also, for the first time in his tenure at West Virginia, he has now won 3 games in a row. Things are looking good for the Mountaineers, but there are still a few question marks. We're going to talk about all that right after this word from our sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up, college sports fans, Big 12 fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? Welcome in to another edition of Couz's Corner. Belly yourself up to the bar and let me pour you out a shot of top shelf college football content. On tap today, we are talking about the West Virginia victory over Texas Tech, and we're going to review that game, and I'll give you my thoughts. We'll talk about team stats. We'll talk about some individual performances, some PFF grades for the Mountaineers, as well as what to expect moving forward with the quarterback position and other things. The first thing I want to do is pull up the team stats for this game so you guys can look at them with me. And as you'll see, when I pull these up, West Virginia basically got beat in every statistical category except the one that matters, and that's the win. But when you look at first downs, Texas Tech had 2 more first downs than West Virginia, 18-16. Third down efficiency, Texas Tech was 2 of 18. West Virginia was 3 of 13. So West Virginia was slightly better in that category, but still not very good. Fourth down efficiency, Texas Tech was 5 of 8 on fourth downs. West Virginia was 1 of 1. Total yards, Texas Tech 321 to West Virginia's 256. Passing yards, 161 for Texas Tech, 99 for West Virginia. Completions, you see that Texas Tech was 15 out of 43 passing, which is a very low percentage. West Virginia was 13 of 22. So even though West Virginia didn't throw the ball as much, they were more efficient with the pass game. West Virginia was 4.5 yards per pass compared to 3.7 for Texas Tech. So neither team was doing well at getting and throwing the ball down the field. West Virginia did have the two interceptions thrown, which was their only 2 turnovers, the only 2 turnovers of the game. Texas Tech outrushed West Virginia slightly, 160 to 157. They did it on 38 attempts. West Virginia's 157 was on 42 attempts. Penalties, Texas Tech had 9 penalties for 96 yards. West Virginia 3 penalties for 20 yards. A fairly clean game for the Mountaineers. One of the things they focused on in the offseason was not beating themselves, and so far as penalties are concerned, they have done a good job of doing that. And then when you look at time of possession, another key factor in this game, and one of the 2 reasons, along with the penalties, that I think West Virginia won this game, and that was time of possession. West Virginia had the ball for 34 minutes and 50 seconds compared to only 25 minutes and 10 seconds for Texas Tech. And if you look at the way this game trended, I mean, West Virginia pretty much dominated in the first half. Texas Tech was not able to get anything going offensively. And then as the game wore on, and especially as the weather improved, because most of you know this game was played in very rainy, chilly conditions. I was at the game, so I can vouch for that. It was a miserable day outside. It rained almost the entire game, at least in some way, shape, or form, whether it was a heavy rain or a drizzle. Now, it did clear up a little bit later in the game in the fourth quarter, and as we saw, Texas Tech started playing better during that stretch. I don't know if it was related to the weather or if it was related to West Virginia's defense getting tired, if it was maybe the tempo starting to take an effect on West Virginia defense. But nonetheless, West Virginia's defense still stood up and made plays when they needed to make plays in that game. And that's the first thing I want to talk about when you look at the positives of this game. When you look at the defensive performance of this game, man, I mean, a lot of things stand out. Number one, just that third down efficiency. West Virginia was able to get Texas Tech, or was able to get off the field on third downs on defense. They were able to create a lot of havoc for Tyler Shough and then later Behren Morton. And by the way, speaking of Tyler Shough, who was a starter for Texas Tech in this game, thoughts and prayers go out to that young man. He suffered a horrific injury. Looks like he has a broken bone in his leg. The young man has just struggled to stay healthy throughout his career. So hats off to him and kudos to him and prayers to him as he fights to another recovery, and it looks like he'll be out for the season. But when you look at some of these individual performances on West Virginia's defense, just a lot of balance here and a lot of good performances. Number one, you want to look at Trey Lathan. He led the team with 8 total tackles, 2 of those being solo. Also had a pass deflected. Did a really good job getting in the backfield. Anthony Wilson also had 7 tackles, along with Aubrey Burks, Edward Vesterinen, and Lee Koba. And then the 2 players that I really want to pinpoint are Beanie Bishop and Marcis Floyd. Beanie Bishop has been arguably I don't even think it's arguable, actually, the best corner on this team all year. He's been a great pickup so far for this team in the transfer portal as he came over to us from Minnesota. But he had 5 tackles on the day, along with 3 passes defended, and just made play after play in that game on deep balls. Texas Tech just kept coming after him. I don't know if it was just they liked the guy that was going up against him, or for whatever reason they felt like he was a weak point of the secondary. But whatever the reason was, Beanie Bishop just continued to make plays for that West Virginia defense, and they were not able to beat him in a lot of one-on-ones. And then Marcis Floyd, the guy just made play after play, got in the backfield several times. When you look at his stats, they don't blow you away, but a lot of the things he was doing to affect the game won't necessarily show up on a stat line. He had 3 total tackles, 1 sack, a tackle for loss, and 3 passes defended. So an absolute just monster day for Marcis Floyd, and he got in the backfield even more than what the stats show. But him coming back from injury, we all remember he missed the first 2 games of the season. Ever since he's been back against Pitt and now against Texas Tech, he has just played extremely well, and he's playing multiple positions. They have him playing some with the spear, and they have him playing some with the nickel corner position, and he's doing really well at both spots. Hershey McLaurin went down in this game because Hershey was actually the starting spear, but Lance Dixon was the substitute spear, and then Marcis Floyd was able to play that spot some to give him some breather or some breathers. But nonetheless, Marcis Floyd just played a great game. But I also want to give a shout out to the West Virginia's front 7. They played just a phenomenal game. Their defensive line played really well. I don't know if you guys have noticed, and you probably have, and if not, you've probably read about it or seen it heard about it on some podcast. But West Virginia's changed some things schematically up front. They are playing with 2 bandits in the game on a lot of occasions. Yesterday, they had both Tyron Bradley and Jared Bartlett in the game at the same time. I do not ever remember seeing that since Jordan Leslie's been the D coordinator here at West Virginia, but I like it. You get 2 really good pass rushers in the game. You have Tyron Bradley, who's a bigger, stronger guy, who's more like a D end, and then you have Jared Bartlett, who's the speed rusher coming off the other end. That puts a lot of pressure on those offensive tackles for the opposing team. And then you've got guys like Mike Lockhart, Sean Martin, Edward Vesterinen, Torma Mobile, those guys who can come up the middle and cause havoc that way. And also it creates more gaps potentially for guys like Lee Koba, Trey Lathan, and others to get in the backfield from the linebacker spot. So I really like the change-up in scheme that this Western defense has employed. They told us things would be different this year, and they certainly have, and so far I like it. And just to touch on what that has done, and now what that's the improvement that's led to, when you look at the overall performance of this West Virginia defense, here's where they stand nationally right now, and this is per earsports.com. I pulled this off of their site. The West Virginia's defense right now is 34th in the country in yards allowed per game. They're 33rd in the country in scoring per game, 38th in the country against the run, number 6 in the country on third downs. Their opponents are getting first downs on only 25% of their third down opportunities. But when you look at West Virginia's offense, it's a totally different story, which we'll get to in just a minute. But I just wanted to take this opportunity. This defense, for the last 2 weeks, has won football games for this West Virginia team. The offense has done just enough, but the defense has really been what's won the games, in my opinion, for this West Virginia team. I also want to take this opportunity to give a shout-out to Coach Brown and his staff. I know it hasn't looked pretty, guys, but they are 3-1 on the season. Coach Brown has beaten Pitt and Texas Tech in back-to-back weeks. Like I mentioned in the opening, he's beaten Texas Tech for the first time since he's been here. He's won 3 in a row since the first time he's been here. And if they can go on the road to TCU and pull off a win there, they will likely be ranked for the first time since Neal Brown has been at West Virginia. So he could accomplish another feat, check another box that he's not been able to check since he's been the coach for the Mountaineers. So hopefully they can get that done. They open. I've seen a couple different lines. I've seen -13. I've seen -10. I've seen -9. But whatever it is, West Virginia is a major underdog going into this game against TCU, which I will do a preview show on later in the week. Now let's look at some negatives to this game. It wouldn't be fair if I didn't. When you look at the offense, number one, let's talk about the quarterback position. Nicco Marchiol, in my opinion, did not play a bad game yesterday. He did have that one really ugly interception on that slant pass where Coach Brown said he held on to the ball way too long. That's on him. It is, but I'm sure he owns that. Matter of fact, in his postgame presser, Nicco said himself, I did not play good enough football today. So hats off to him for acknowledging that at the end of the game and showing leadership in that regard. Also, that throw when he was rolling out to his left and trying to hit Hudson Clement down the field, we all remember it was kind of a controversial call where they say he didn't catch it. It looked like he did catch it on the replay. Whatever the case may be, they called it an incomplete pass. It looked to me like Nicco underthrew that ball, but honestly, I don't know. Hudson maybe outran the play. Without knowing the exact play call, I don't know who to point the finger at there, but nonetheless, that looked to me like a short throw by Nicco. But when you take those out of the equation, I felt like Nicco played a pretty darn good game. I mean, he had several drop passes in that game by his receivers. Cole Taylor dropped the touchdown pass in the end zone. We saw Devin Carter drop that slant pass across the middle where Nicco put it right in his numbers. There were several other drops in that game that I just can't recall off the top of my head, but Nicco did not get a whole lot of help from his wide receivers in that game yesterday. Now, would it have been different, or would they have won by a bigger margin, and would the offense have played better had Garrett been in the game? I don't know that. I can't speak to that. Drop passes are drop passes. They likely would have done it with either quarterback. But the one thing I also have to give Nicco credit for is his running attack. He carried the ball for 75 yards yesterday and was a leading rusher for this team and was able to move the chains with his feet on several occasions, was able to make plays with his feet on several occasions. And I've got to give him a shout out for that as well, because he did a good job not only in the passing game but also in the run game, which really helped this team because our running game was not going as good as we'd like it to. And when you look at C.J. Donaldson's stats on the day, he carried the ball 15 times for only 48 yards, which was 3.2 yards per carry. He did have the one touchdown and ran the ball really, really well early. But like I was talking to my partner and friend Mountaineer Paul, before I did this video, and he made a great point. Texas Tech was stacking the box most of the game, trying to force West Virginia to throw the ball. It's hard for anybody to run against a stacked box. So it's hard to fault CJ for that. Jalen Anderson carried the ball 8 times for 18 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. Rodney Gallagher did run the one reverse and got 9 yards on it, so that was a pretty decent play. Jaheim White carried it once for 6 yards, and Justin Johnson Jr. carried it once for 5 yards. Also, want to give a shout out to our offensive line. They did a really good job in pass blocking yesterday. Did not do the greatest job in the world run blocking, but again, Texas Tech was stacking the box, so I'm sure that played a role in it. But when you look at the PFF grades for this game, the offense had some pretty low grades. Again, this comes also from earsports.com. I'll leave links to this stuff in the description box. But when you look at we only had 2 offensive players who graded out above 65 according to Pro Football Focus. That was Wyatt Milam, who graded out at 72.6, and Doug Nestor, who graded out at 68.1. However, when you look at pass blocking, Zach Frazier graded out in pass blocking at 82.5, and Jaquay Hubbard at 77.1. Nicco had time to throw the football, and he put the ball where it needed to go majority of the game. But the receivers did not help him out. Guys, when you have a backup quarterback in the game, you've got to help him out. The guys around him have to step up and make plays, and they did not do that, unfortunately, yesterday. But I will give them credit for this. The last drive, the one where they went up 20-13, Texas Tech had come down and scored, made it a 13-10 game. And Coach Brown told Nicco, he said, we got to throw the football on this drive because they're stacking the box. And Nicco went out, led the team down the field, and they were able to score a touchdown. Cole Taylor caught the touchdown pass. I think Devin Carter caught a pass on that drive. There were some other catches. So kudos to Nicco on the offense. When they were pressed to go score a touchdown to put the game out of reach, they were able to do that. So they made plays when they had to make plays, and that's the sign, in my opinion, of a good football team. This offense can get better. The wide receivers have got to be more consistent catching the ball, and the receivers and running backs have to do a better job of making plays after the catch or yards after contact in the cases of the running backs. This team is struggling to make big plays and explosive plays because they're not doing a good job making people miss, and they're not doing a good job breaking tackles. That's one area they need to improve on. And one area I think we also need to touch on, guys, that I don't really touch on enough here on this channel, is that's the special teams. Preston Fox and that punt return team did a really good job yesterday. He had three punt returns for 45 yards. it's been a long time at West Virginia that we've had the ability to return punts. It's been one of the weakest parts of this team. I think I read somewhere, and I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw this statistic that West Virginia already has more punt return yards this season than they in 4 games than they did the entire 2022 season. So hats off to the punt return team. I felt like the coverage teams did a pretty good job. There were a couple decent runs there late in the game for Texas Tech on kickoff and or punt returns, but for the most part, I felt like the coverage teams did good. Oliver Straw punted the ball 6 times, average of 41 yards per punt, and had 4 punts inside the 20. So really good job punting the football as well for Oliver Straw. So I feel like our special teams game is really pretty strong right now. If this team can keep playing good defense, keep playing good in special teams, keep minimizing the number of penalties they get, which they've done a good job of so far, and protect the football, they can win a lot of football games, guys. I know the offense has not been playing great, but the defense can hold them up. If the offense could just improve a little bit every week, get a little bit better every week, and the way this defense and special teams has been playing, this team can win 7 or 8 football games. There is not one game on this schedule to me that's not winnable, with the exception maybe of Oklahoma. And heck, I'm not going to say it's not winnable. The way our defense has been playing, they might be able to slow down that Oklahoma passing attack. Cincinnati was able to hold them to 20 points yesterday. And that 20-point number has been kind of a magic number for Neal Brown. When he holds teams under 20 or less, he usually wins typically. So that's kind of been the number for him since he started here at West Virginia. So the keys of this team is going to be running the football as good as you can to keep the ball away from the other team, play good defense, force teams to kick field goals and get them off the field on 3rd down, not commit penalties, and play good special teams. That's the keys to this team winning games, and so far they've been able to do that for the most part. But they are going to need the offense to improve. They cannot continue to play offense the way they have and win a lot of these games. They're going to have to improve, but I think they can. With that being said, guys, I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Number 1, if it was up to you and Garrett Green is healthy next week, do you put Garrett back in the starting lineup, or do you think Nico deserves to keep starting now that he's basically won 2 games for this Mountaineer team? Also, I want to hear your thoughts on the performance of this team overall. I want to hear your thoughts on Coach Brown's performance. Do you think there's still a lot of areas what areas do you think this team still needs to improve, and what areas do you think they're playing really solid football at? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Now, one thing I do want to touch on real quick that I forgot to mention is depth. Even though our defense is playing really well, especially our secondary, I'm worried about the depth at that spot. If Beanie Bishop or Malachi Ruffin, either one, were to get injured, there's not a lot of depth in that corner room. You'd have Andrew Wilson-Lamp, who has not played well so far this year, and you've got Jacoby Spells, who hasn't been playing much at all this year on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know if either one of those guys are really ready to perform the way we need them to perform. And when you've got teams coming up on your schedule that like to throw the football like a TCU, one injury could really derail you at that spot. So we got to hope that these guys are getting better week in, week out at practice, so that if an injury does occur, they don't suffer the same fate they suffered last year when Charles Woods went down. But hopefully Ruffin and Bishop can both stay healthy the rest of the year. That being said, guys, again, leave me your comments in the comment section. Also, guys, if you want to support me here on the channel, if you like what I do here and you want to support me, there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can go check out my merch store. I have several designs to choose from. You can get you a hoodie to get ready for the cold weather that's coming up here in the fall and winter. You can get yourself a T-shirt. You can get yourself a beanie. You can get yourself a ball cap, a coffee mug, all kinds of products to choose from, different designs that you can see on the screen now. If you want to support me in other ways, you can leave a one-time donation by hitting the super chat button, the super thanks button, which is a heart with a $sign in it. Leave a comment right beside that and make a one-time donation. It gets that comment highlighted as well, and I'll be more likely to respond to it. Also, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, links to all those are in my description box if you want to send me a donation that way. You can also support me here on the channel for free in several different ways. If you like the video, give me the thumbs up button. If you want to leave a comment below, you can do that. You can subscribe to the channel. And last but not least, share it out with your family and friends. Let them know about me here at Couz's Corner. I cover West Virginia football, the Big 12, and a lot of conference realignment news. With that being said, guys, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you tuning into this episode of Couz's Corner. And until the next one, Q Country Roads.